Hello, I'm back again, and today I'm going to be looking at The Sun by Philipp Meyer, which is published by Simon & Schuster. I was sent this proof absolutely ages ago, and I had a quick look at it, and I saw the man on his horse. It looked like a western. I hate westerns, so I put it on the shelf and I forgot about it. And then towards the end of last year, with the end of year book list started appearing, and there was The Sun again and again and again. So I thought maybe I've been a bit prejudiced here. Then a friend of mine mentioned that it was not only her favourite book of last year, but possibly one of the best books she'd ever read. So now I'm really having my arm twisted, so I gave it a read. It has three narrative strands. The first of these begins in 1849. So the newly established Republic of Texas, and Eli McCulloch is the man whose story we hear about, and he's just a boy when his family are attacked by a band of Comanche, and his sister and mother are killed. He is taken captive and raised by the Comanche for many years. He then comes back to American society, if you like, and we find out about his sort of drive for power after that. The other strand is the story of his son, Peter, and I guess we might call that the emotional cost of his father's actions, is what we get to read about there. And then we jump forward a couple of generations to J.A., Jeannie Ann, and she is the granddaughter of Peter, and she is now the head of a family whose huge wealth is based on Texas oil. So we've got an awful lot there: Comanche, murder, death, rape, pillage, all sorts, wealth, oil, capitalism, it's all there. Somebody had described it as being like Dallas, written by Cormac McCarthy, which sounded hideous to me, but I gave it a read anyway. Meyer can write, definitely can write. The interesting thing is that because of these different narrative strands, I found my interest and my allegiance to the various characters moving around as I read the book. So at the beginning, I was really only interested in Eli and his story, and having to read the other bits was actually a slight irritant. I wanted to focus on Eli. And I thought that was going to remain the case, in which case I wish he'd just written Eli's story. But then suddenly I'm more interested in Peter, and I'm not so interested in Eli anymore. And then a little bit later on in the book, now I'm suddenly fascinated by Jeannie and her story. And it kept shifting, which is a good trick. But it does mean that even when you're really fascinated by one part of the story, you are being annoyed by one or two other parts of the story. And that's why, for me, the novel didn't quite hold together as a whole. The problem with having this grand, epic, sweeping story like this, and to have those different narrative strands, is it's very hard to keep them all fascinating at the same time. And you do, as a reader, question whether the book might have been better if it had focused on just one of them. Could maybe have written three separate books. There is, of course, an advantage to having these interweaving stories. You know, you see the impact of the various generations of the family as you're reading through. So, as I say, a good read, if not a great one, and interesting, I think, as I often say, to see what he writes next. I haven't read his first novel, American Rust, which got some fantastic reviews. I'm glad I did read it, even if I can't be quite as enthusiastic as some people have about it. It wouldn't have been on my Books of the Year list last year if I'd had one. Anyway, that is The Sun. Next week, I'm going to be looking at Double Negative, which is from And Other Stories and is really great.